A warm greeting to everyone. I, Rahul, cordially welcome you all to the first session on second day, 1 week National Online Faculty Development Program on Research Methodology, which is organized by the PG Commerce University, Bodh the Indian and Patna. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce before you our guest speaker of this session, Dr. Jogendra Kumar Nayak. Dr. Nayak is the Associate Professor in the marketing, the Department of Management Studies, Institute of Technology, Roorkee. He is a PhD holder from Indian School of Technology, Kharagpur. He teaches marketing in spring and autumn semesters in IT Roorkee. Along with it, he also teaches industrial marketing. He has publication in most auditing houses, Silver, Emerald, Sage, and Finance. His major areas are in industrial marketing, consumer, and tourism management. He regularly conducts workshop titled Analysis for Research and Publication, which is attended by participants and research education institution, government organization, and industry as well. On behalf of the PG Department of Commerce, Magad University, the Indian Accounting Association branch, all the participants, and on personal behalf, I welcome you, sir, for this session. The topic for the session is writing a research article. Now I request Dr. Jogendra, sir, to take over and lead the session. Over to you, sir. Thanks.
Thank you, Rahul. A very good morning to everyone out here. Thank you, Dr. Dharen, for inviting me and the entire university and the accounting association, accounts association. So, well, let me just I pray that you all must be doing pretty good in your different wherever you are. This is a difficult time. So, first of all, am I audible to you? Is my voice clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because what I'll request is some people have kept their mics on, so they can turn it off. Otherwise, there will be echo or disturbance. Okay. So I'll request that, and except one person who can be like a host or something. Although I'm the host, I believe right now I'm the host, Rahul.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you so much for inviting me for this wonderful session started by you at Magad University. So today's topic is a very important one where everybody is, all of us who are into academics, it's very important for us, right? They say no, they like if you don't publish, you perish, right? So that's how important it is. So if we have to grow in our career, we have to publish at any cost. But that any cost is a very tricky word. It's a very tricky word, and it needs to be understood very carefully. So my job is till date, I have been more comfortable teaching people statistics, research methods, the tools and techniques, and you can see. I'm sure some of you must have seen me or my courses in NPTEL also. If I don't know whether you have seen it or not, but I have a course called Marketing Research and Analysis in NPTEL. So 1 and 2, almost 50 hours of course. So I don't know whether it's useful or not also, but people might have seen it, and I hope it is of some use. So well, so that's my comfortable area is. And when Professor Dhiren asked me to talk about writing a research paper, I said, well, thank you so much, but it's like a little big responsibility because only people with a lot of experience, I believe, should be talking on this. Yes, I am also not very young, but then, the experience always talks. So writing a research paper is something which is very, very as important as I said. And let me share a screen. I have made a PPT, small PPT to share with you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Thiren. Thank you. So I have made a slide, so PPT, and I have taken immense pain to make this. So I was also sitting since the morning, 5 o'clock today also. Although these topics are familiar to me, but then whenever I come to a class, I ensure at least I have studied. Last 3 days I have been preparing. You might not see much in this slide, but then my hard work is still there. So I'll start with that. So this is what I have prepared, right? And so this is how it goes. So the topic is writing a research article, and this is what I am. And thanks Rahul to introduce me. Gaining clarity. So see, the issue of writing a research paper, as we understand, everybody knows it's important, but there are ways, if we don't understand, then writing the research paper becomes very tough for us. Or sometimes if we don't understand it well, it could be possible that we get into the wrong way, right? So none of them is important, and rather we need to be more scientific in nature to ensure that we don't fall prey, we don't land into difficulty, and the research paper writing becomes a smooth, process, right? If whatever be your areas, people, can I know some of your areas? People are mostly from finance accounts, or there are other areas also, people? The participants, can I know, Professor Dharin, can somebody tell me some of the areas? You can just type it out, chat it in the chat box. Your area, just in one word. So what areas people come from generally? Am I audible, Professor Dharin?
Yes, sir, you are.
I was just wondering to know, what are the
So
areas?
most of the participants are from finance, marketing, and HR.
That's interesting.
The
So they are
participants
mostly
are from other disciplines, also from mathematics and
yes,
social science.
mathematics, but largely from the field of management, largely, and some
Yes,
from
management
science
and
also.
yes.
Wonderful.
Mostly from management areas.
Yeah, it's important for me to just get a feel of who is sitting, with me, because it helps in their career. There's no doubt about it. That's important. But what is the source? What's the reason why we started? So this is a few points which I wanted to share, and I have some, more. So it starts with a basic idea in your mind. So you may have some basic idea, as I have written, in your mind. You may wish to work on. Suppose, for example, as you have seen, if you have seen my Google Scholar, I have papers in the largely in the area of industrial marketing, in brands and tourism, right? And I have even in the area of digital to some extent I am getting into. So there are basically, it is revolved in the area of marketing, purely marketing, and not even diverse to other streams in marketing like service or something. I am concentrated to only one or two areas in the field of marketing. Now the question is, why do you want to do this? What is there any idea you want to test? Now, for example, everybody must be having some basic idea, right? So otherwise, if somebody doesn't have an idea to start with, one can do this by doing some basic Google Scholar research, or search to understand what exactly is happening around you or your topic of interest, right? So if I want to write a research paper, I should be knowing what is the current things that are going on, right? And see that research is of two ways. Everybody understands this. One is a radical research, which we hardly see. So radical research, in the sense, I mean to say something that's very, very innovative, very, very new, and the world is not much aware about it, right? But then that's a very, very specific, specialized thing. But we largely talk about incremental research. So where our objective is to write something on which some work has been done, but not much has been done. Generally, that is how we do research, right? So let's be honest to that. And I'm not an Einstein or a Newton to start with the law of gravitation or the photoelectric effect or something. I don't know, and I have not created anything. So my understanding is that my research is not a radical research; it's an incremental research. So just search around to find out what are the topics going on, right? So the best thing is, the best way, as I've said, is make use of Google Scholar, Google search smartly by using the keywords and not the entire subject, right? So use databases like Science Direct, if you have an access to these, or you have other databases, something which you have access. So you need, first, the researcher has to be sure what does he work on. For example, do you have any topics in your mind at the moment? If you have, what I'll suggest is keep writing as I am asking you or doing something. Please, I'll request every one of you. Those who are not interested, it's welcome. But then those who are interested to learn more, have a notebook or a paper in your front, so that, and when I'm asking something, keep writing something, right? So we can end of the day and we can try to have a recap or something, right? So when I'm saying what's the basic idea you want to do research, just write a few one line or a few words that you would be interested to do research. So all of you can do that if you want, right? So after you gain the clarity, right? So think about it, keep writing. What basic idea you want to do research? If I would have been given an opportunity to do research now, my luckily I have one article which has come very recently. It has not even been published. It's online now. That's an article which is in a very good journal. So it is on travel behavior. Now, how service quality assessment in the railway metro systems in Delhi. That's the paper which I have worked. So because I'm associated with the Center for Transportations in IIT Roorkee. So that's a recent paper which I have worked on, and it's a very good journal. The question is how do we start? Where do we start? Right? So that's an important question. How to start the entire research process? So let's see. How do we start? So as I said, start with reading good quality research papers. Nothing compensates reading, right? So the more you read, the more we read, the more confusions also arise, the more questions arise in our mind, and the better our clear the understanding is. If a person who has not studied anything is either a fool or he's a genius, so, right? So we are neither of them. So what the best thing is for us is to read quality research papers. Now this is something I have seen people avoiding. I have seen my own scholars, I have seen my colleagues, my people in my own field. They don't believe in reading. But then the question is, if you don't read, where do you get your ideas from? So very little reading doesn't help. So read extensively, right? So these are very simple philosophies like things, but then it helps a lot. So one simple rule, as it says, in computer science, we say that is saying ego, that is garbage in, garbage out. If you read papers which are of very poor quality or something, then also it doesn't help you much, because then this is something that if somebody will ask me, sir, how do you understand something is a poor research paper? I don't know what's a poor research paper, but then I say something is poor, where I can go wrong, but then still, because I do not have an option, what I'll do is I just select good journals or something, and believe the hypothesis that my hypothesis would be that these are the good journals, so the papers must be good. But if a journal or is something which is not at all a good journal or not listed, I doubt any good researcher would put his article out there. Why would he do that? His hard work or her hard work. Why should he put it there? So you must have seen sometimes, coming to your mailboxes that we do publish journals and impact factor of 8, 9, 7. So they are bogus kind of journals and they don't say anything. But then that is something we need to avoid, right? Your research work depends upon how strong is the literature review, how good and useful are the references on which you are basing your research. So stronger the base, better the outcome. So you see, it is as simple as like you have a foundation for your home, you are building a new house. So the stronger the foundation, the higher the house can go up, right? So you can make it 2-storied, 3-storied, 4-storied, depending on the foundation. So how much of literature you have studied, how much of literature you have reviewed, it's a very, very important, and there is no compromise on this. Focus on the good quality journals, as I said, from ABDC listed journals. And even I would suggest, if you are reading and you are spending anyway, let's say 2 hours or 3 hours in reading, let's say on a paper, minimum I'm saying this, if you have you are not new and you are a seasoned researcher, you can understand the scientific terms much faster, then you may take 2-3 hours. But suppose, you are new, you may take a little more, right? Even days to understand the article. So if you are spending anyway 2-3 hours or 10 hours or whatever it is, then why should you be even reading a poor journal, poor article, right? Or an article published in a poor journal. So you have a scope. Same 3 hours I can, read an article which is published in a very good journal. Same 3 hours I can spend an article read an article which is published in a very poor journal. So when I have two choices, what should I do? Obviously I will go for the one which is of the quality journal, right? So ABDC, the ABS, Scopus index journals. So there are a basket of a large number of journals. Now the question is, what do we want to read, right? when we are reading, do not add unnecessary references. So this is not now, for example, when you're talking about references and all, I'll explain to you how important they are and how you should be targeting your papers. So now the question comes, I have got an idea, or by maybe speaking to others, by reading research articles, by talking to experts in the area, whatever I have done. Now the question is, I have now zeroed down. So I hope everybody has written something on your papers, on your notebooks, what kind of research articles you want to write, maybe one or two, not much, right? So how to prepare the paper? Now, suppose in this case, I would have asked you, how many research papers have you already read around that? Please honestly write that. Don't answer me, but honestly write that in that research paper, in that, topic on which, if it is zero, write zero. Don't worry, right? Don't worry, because it's only a preparation. So how to prepare the paper? Now, this is something, because I teach this course, marketing research, for the students at IIT, both MBA and engineering, and you have seen me, I have almost 10 11 I have made such conferences and workshops. So I have been into this area for a long time now. So how do you prepare? So the preparation format is more or less the same, right? So there are a few things which you need to keep in mind. It has to have a very attractive title. So the title is like, the name of the movie. So if the movie's name is not very attractive, some people might not watch the movie just because they feel it must be a boring movie. But sometimes an attractive title can force people to watch a movie just because they feel the movie should be interesting. And in this way, the owner, the producer, makes some extra money, right? So an attractive title is something which forces the reviewer and the editor to at least go through the abstract or read the abstract, right? They would read the abstract for no doubt, but at least the reader, then suppose the paper is published, the reader would at least go for it, would read the details, the abstract at least. So an attractive title is a very important thing. Then you follow it by the abstract, the keywords. Then is the introduction section. Why I'm going fast is I have everything in detail, so I'll explain. Introduction, then the review of literature. Sometimes you will see that this introduction and review of literature is merged into one, right? So you may write an introduction, and the introduction may carry the review of literature, the literature that you have studied within it, right? So some people make two different sections, some people make different a single section. So it depends on how you are writing. So I'll come to that. Then after you have done some introduction, review of literature, then you come to the methods or the methodology, right? So what methodology the researcher is adopting to conduct his or her research. Once you have done with the methodology, then you come to the result section. So the result are something that has been an outcome of your data collection or your analysis or something, right? Fine, you have done your results also. After that, what will you do? You write the discussion section. So discussion, this section I'll come, it's a very important section, followed by conclusion, acknowledgement. If you have taken help of somebody has helped you in the process of doing the research, you should surely acknowledge it. It's an ethical issue also, right? And finally, the references, followed by, if you have appendix, tables and figures and all, those that should be in the appendix out here. Okay. Start with the title and abstract. Now what I'm going to do is,
Okay.
if it goes 5 minutes, 10 minutes here and there, it's okay, right?
Okay. Okay. Fine.
So the title and the abstract. Now, what I'll do ask is, whatever research you are thinking of, if you have something in mind, some of you can try to write a title, right? So that I can ask you at the end. Now, as I had said, a short and attractive title. Sometimes people tend to write very, very long sentences. That's very not a very good practice. You should avoid. One should avoid. The title should be short, because making a short and attractive title is a very difficult thing. And generally what people do is they go for an easy method. So they go for something, either they would go for an easy method in the sense they would write a long sentence, or they would miss out some of the important points by making a short and attractive title. So it doesn't become attractive, but only short. So that's the challenge, how you want to do it, right? I also figure out a lot of difficulty when I write a title, because sometimes I don't get a title well. So I make difficult ones, sometimes very longer ones also, but not so long. I ensure that I keep it in mind, right? Then the abstract should summarize the article briefly. What is the role of abstract, right? So it includes the motivation, what was done in this research, how it was done, what was found, and major conclusions. Now you might be thinking, all this in the abstract? Yes, all this in the abstract. So the question is, how good are you at writing? So you may spend a line, you don't have to explain everything. So you may say, the motivation of this research was to understand the, let's say, the industrial SME sector, MSME sector, right? It was done through a primary research, and it was done in the, this place. And the findings of the study it was this, and it helped in this. So it is maximum 5 lines or 7 lines or 10 lines, right? Not more than that. But then it has to be said, because a reader doesn't know what is there in the entire paper, which is 12-15 pages, and he would not even read, and he would not download also. So the abstract is everything, right, that it talks about the paper. Avoid abbreviations and references, right? And you don't require this in the abstract. Keep it short, from 50 to 250 words in one paragraph, right? So generally it is said to be less than 300 or 250 words. So it has to, within this 250 words maximum, you have to tell the reader what was the motivation, how was it done, and what were the findings. Finally, every journal asks you to give you a few keywords. Now, interestingly, do you know why these keywords are asked to you? Why these keywords are being ever asked? Any clue? Anybody can say, can contribute? Why these keywords are being asked to people? The simple reason is that once the paper gets published, so it needs citation, it needs to be viewed, to be read by others, right? So how would people select a paper? Obviously not on some title, right? They won't have a title. So what they do is they type the keywords. So the keywords are the ones which should be the one which you have to give it very intelligently. Sometimes people do this, they give very generalized keywords. For example, consumer behavior, they would say derivatives, right? So when you say such kind of things, India, then what happens is the difficulty, when I type India, maybe I will get lakhs of documents. When I say consumer behavior, I may get thousands of documents. When I say something, when I say neural marketing, let's say neural network, I may get little lesser, right? So cognitive therapy, let's say, I will get still lesser. So a reader who is interested to search, once he is a scientific researcher, he would not like to go around documents in lakhs or thousands, but he would want that his keyword directly matches, and he gets maybe a few hundred of papers only, so, or a few double-digit numbers, so that it becomes easier for him to search the paper, right? Now, once you have done, as I said, so once you have done the title and the abstract, which is very, very vital because this is the most attractive part, then the researcher comes to the introduction. Now, what do you do in this introduction? What is the role of this introduction? So the starting point where you convince the reader that you know why your work is relevant also for them. So the introduction is that stage where we, as a researcher, try to say or convince the reader that, well, whatever you have come for, you will find it here, right? My work is a very relevant work and it's a very important work, and whatever you are searching, you will find it in this article, right? So to do that, you have to answer a few questions. For example, what should the introduction comprise of? It should answer a few questions to do that. The introduction, which may be a mix of the literature review also. What is the problem? What is the problem you are addressing in this, research title, this research paper or research article, right? So what is the problem you are addressing? Currently, what are the solutions? What are researchers talking about it, right? What do researchers what is researchers' opinion? Different researchers across the globe, what is their opinion, right? So out of this, is there some good logical, some kind of a good solution, or some good method, or something, good output which has come out of some other researchers? You can quote that also, right? What is the limitation at the moment, right? What is the limitation of this research, of the earlier researchers, what they had not done? So many a times this main limitation people understand or take it as to help, it helps you to identify the gap of the study. Now this is generally asked, right? What is the gap of the study? We ask a PhD scholar, what is the gap? How do you identify the gap? So this gap is generally identified through by reading and then identifying the limitations of the different studies that you have studied. Okay. One important thing in introduction is the role of theory. Now, whenever you write a research paper, generally people don't do it. But when you have come to this lecture of mine, I would surely suggest you, whenever you are writing, please and please write the basic, theory that is prevalent in for this research study. So if you have done a research study, what is the background of this research study? What's on it? It stands upon what theory? So what theory you are going to test, or what theory are you going to base your study on? So that is very, very, very important, right? Now the rent theory, for example, we say, or for example, the theory of basking glory, or the theory of consumer behavior, where the cognitive affective theory. So we have several theories. Now we need to identify or understand and tell the researchers, other readers, what is the theory on which my study is based on. So he becomes very clear. Well, this is something that I need to understand. And if you do not write those, the theory, it is fine. But then if you do it, it adds to the publishing ability of your paper. The ability to publish your paper becomes a little higher, right? How do you hope to improve or contribute to this? Now, something you have to say. How will my paper, contribute to whatever I have discussed in this portion? Now, this is the section generally where we develop the research hypothesis and the research questions. I'm sure all of you are aware what's the research hypothesis and the research question, because time will not permit to get into these things, because otherwise I would have gone at length. But anyway, to understand for a second, a research question is a part of my exploratory research where I do not have a clue and I am trying to ask questions and understand it, right? Test it. On the other hand, a hypothesis is is a part of the descriptive research usually, or the causal, where we try to test this hypothesis and try to prove or disprove a theory. Okay. So when you develop a hypothesis, how do you develop or how do you write a hypothesis? Now, this is something generally people don't discuss, but I'll tell you, I'll spend a minute or two. Okay, what I can show is, okay, let me tell you, because again, it take time. So when you develop a hypothesis, let's say I have a hypothesis that increase in price of goods will lead to increase in demand. Reverse. I'm not saying increase in price will lead to decrease in demand. I'm saying increase in price of a particular good will lead to increase in its demand, or will lead to higher status level for people. People feel that the status level will increase if the price of the good increases. Now this is a study I want to do on. So how do I test it? What do I do? So when I am writing this hypothesis, at least there has to be one paragraph of explanation before it, which talks about in detail what is price you're talking about, what is the the sales you're talking about, what do you mean by status, and then after connecting this, then one line should come, H1. Let's say the first hypothesis, H1, is that increase in price lead to improvement in status among among people in a colony, right? So similarly, this is my first hypothesis. Second hypothesis, I can have another subtopic and then have another develop a hypothesis. So what I have seen is noted is that sometimes students, researchers, they tend to straight away write the hypothesis. Please don't do that. If you want to get your research paper published, don't do that. So what you should do it, you should basically try to explain the evolution of the hypothesis. How did this hypothesis come from? From where did it come from? It cannot just come over from the sky and fall on the research paper. So it has to have some logic. Where did it results, by the discussion, and finally the references. Okay. So this needs to be mentioned. Okay. Now, very important is, see, our mother language is not obviously English, and many of us are not very good at English, right? So that becomes a very critical thing for us. So many times it has been seen that the research papers do not get published just because of some problem in English, right? Because the readers generally are people who are from the English speaking countries, and if it is not English speaking country also, what happens is English being one of the most spoken languages, so what happens is there is a translation facility. So if a German student wants to read it, if it's a paper in English, he can translate it into German language. Similarly for a Japanese student also. But if you maybe there are not enough translations for Japanese and Germany. So if I want to read a paper of German, I cannot translate it into English. It's not that easy. So we all understand that English is one of the most important things. Now, when you are writing a paper, you have to be extremely careful, right? Now, this is something obviously it would affect from where you have, how good you are in your English. But it's not about your spoken English we are not talking about. So people need not worry. So sometimes people say, sir, I am from a private, public medium school, state medium school. I am not good at English. No, no, that's a wrong concept you are having in your mind. You are not from a English medium school. That is fine. That would have only improved your spoken English. But here we are not requiring any spoken English. We are requiring only written English. So you need to be good in grammar. And to be good in grammar, it's not important whether you are from a state medium or a public English medium school, right? It's not important. So correct your grammar. And if you cannot do it yourself, take help of others. Or if you cannot take help of others also because of some secrecy or something, then you can take use of tools like Grammarly and other English correcting softwares also available. The first thing is, when I say talk about grammar and language, save your editor and reviewer the trouble of guessing what you mean. Now, what do you mean by saying this? This is threshold, right? I refuse to spend time trying to understand what the author is trying to say. It's none of my business. I will not waste my time on that. Besides, I want to send a message that authors can't submit a substandard paper to us and expect us to fix it. They cannot expect us to do that work for them. So it says my rule of thumb is that if more than 6 grammatical errors are there in the abstract, I would desk reject it. I won't waste my time carefully reading the rest. Did you understand? That means if there are simple grammar, 6 grammar, he says, now that could be different for different people, but 6 grammatical errors or 5 grammar, if there are grammatical errors in the abstract, which is only 250 words, that shows that the researcher must have done lots of mistakes in the paper. So who is going to correct it for them? We don't have time. That's what this. So you should be careful in your grammar, right? Very important. And let me tell you, most of the paper get rejected just because of the poor English, not the content. This is a misnomer people have that my paper was not of the standard. No, your paper was of the standard, but you did not take, enough, difficulty or pain to correct the English. And the people who are reading it are from an English speaking, country, and they are the ones who are generally reviewing it. Generally, I'm saying, right? We also doing reviewer. I'm also reviewer too. You must be reviewers to some journals, but then largely it's being done by them. And we also get tired when I read myself. When I read a review a paper and I see a student has not written well, although I pity he must be from a Asian country, but then my patience goes away. I lose my patience because if in a day I have to read, let's say, one paper, and let's say in 15 days I have to submit the review, I don't have the time because I have so much of work. I have to take my class, do research, have some administrative work, and I have several other things. I'm in certain bodies, so I cannot do this. So write short sentences, direct sentences, very professional looking. Right? Don't write unnecessary sentences. People feel this is. Please don't mind. So when I was a student, they said, and I don't know, some of you might agree also. In science, the lesser you write, it is better. But in arts and commerce, the more you write, it is better. And I have heard as a joke also in my childhood days that my teacher gave me marks on our teacher gives us mark on the basis of the weight of the paper, right? So that is something which has made us poor research paper writers. Okay, so that method has to go away. So very crisp and clear it should be, right? avoid multiple sentences in one sentences because they are confusing. Hmm. So you see this, if I ask you to read from here to here, this is from some science area. I have just copied it from there. If it is the case, intravenous administration should result in that emulsion has higher intravenous administration retention concentration, but which is not in accordance with the result, and therefore the more rational interpretation should be that SNL with mean diameter of this much is greatly different from emulsion with mean diameter of this much. Namely, it is now when I read such kind of paper, do you feel I have the time, the patience to get into this? Instead, this paper, this line could have been broken into 2 or 3 small right paper, lines, sentences. That would have made it very simple with proper comma and full stops. It could have been made more simpler to the reader, okay, the reviewer. Write complete sentences, but not long or very short, right? Don't try to use abbreviation kind of things only. Commas, which generally our Indian students, our Indian public, we are not very good at that, so we miss it out. Now, how do you miss commas? If you miss commas, the meaning of the sentence goes away. So we need to understand how to use this properly. Use of tenses. Recently, one of my students here, we were not sent that paper. It is, I am still checking with the English now because other things I have checked. What he has done is, he is also a student of mine from Bihar only, from Patna. So this student of mine is brilliant. He's very bright. But the point is, the way he has written the paper, in some part he has used a present tense, in some part he has written a past tense, some part he has tried to use future. Now that has become a completely mix, right? So that's very confusing. You should not be doing that. Now, how you should use the tense, I'll tell you. The tense should be like, the researcher had done this. The researcher had done this, study in India. So you talk about in the past, right? It's not a present. You cannot be talking about in the present tense, right? I am doing this. No. So it has to be, the tense has to be a past tense. Generally, this is something where students miss out, right? So the use of have, had, these are very important how you use that, right? Do not use colloquial languages or jargons. Colloquial are basically local kind of stuff. So, some people, for example, say football. Some people say soccer, right? Now, which one do you use? You have to use either a British English, or if it is an American English, then completely American English. You cannot be making a mix of British and American at the same time, right? So avoid these things. And what is a slang? A slang is not something like you shout at somebody. Some words are considered to be slang. In this research paper, one of the words that was used was idiosyncratic. Now my student had used it. I refused to use this word. I said, let's go with a simpler word. First, because it looks like more like a slang. It might not be, but still it looks like a slang. And some reviewer might not like it. So you have to be careful. No contractions, right? So you should not be saying don't, couldn't. That should not be used. Or sometimes I've seen people using terms like, this is the first kind of research, this is the first research. Please don't write that. The reviewers don't like it. If you say first and this is the only research, no. This is not done. You have not read the whole library. It's like a sea of knowledge. So you may say it is one of the few, or the authors have seen very little of such articles or such ideas. That can be mentioned, right? So reasonably sized paragraphs also. Your paragraph should not be a one-page paragraph, right? It's a one page then. So it should be smaller ones and clearly written. Now coming to the area which generally is the closest to my heart, the methodology part. I hope everybody is getting clear with what I'm saying. Can I get a yes from 1 or 2 people? Is it clear what I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So coming to the methods. Now, this is the section where people spend most of their time, and they spend very little time in the introduction, in the literature, in the discussion. They spend almost all their time here, method. But let me tell you, I am a man of marketing research. I teach, I have made courses, but still I say, you cannot be devoting all your time only into methodology. It is important, there is no doubt about it. But then your time has to be equally divided into different aspects. And if you focus only on methodology, maybe the methodology becomes very good, but then other things are poor, which doesn't results in the non-acceptance of the paper. Now, what do I mean? I'm not trying to belittle methodology, but I'm trying to just tell you, don't give unnecessary importance to methodology also, right? Although I'm a man of methodology and I teach this course, but still I'm saying this. Include all important details so that the reader can repeat the work. Why are you doing, when you are doing a methodology, when you are writing a methodology, the first thing is that the whole idea, the spirit is your methodology should be such that tomorrow, if another young researcher wants to conduct a research, your research paper should behave like a guide, a roadmap, right? So that will only happen when you have written your methods very clearly, right? So that others can easily follow it. And there is nothing wrong in following others. Only thing is we need to, give importance to that person. We should not plagiarize it. Well, I'll come to that later on. So explain the study setting properly. Now, what is the study setting? Where the study is being done, where it is being conducted, what is the locality. So a description. Suppose I did a study in Uttarakhand, right? So my study setting was Rishikesh. So I described Rishikesh. See, what is Rishikesh, where it is situated, what kind of a place it is. So that, what happens, the reader, you or me will not think about it while writing the research paper. We feel it's so uneasy, what is there. But then if somebody tells you a story, suppose somebody tells you a story during your childhood and he misses this portion, when he talks about a story of, let's say, Uttarakhand, and he doesn't describe the place, do you find it interesting? The same thing. A research paper is nothing but is a storytelling. It's a process of storytelling. And all good researchers, be it Einstein or be it Ruskin Bond or be it Shakespeare's work or anything for that, any poetic work or science, pure science work, it's all and all a storytelling. If you cannot tell your story well, reader will not appreciate it, however the content good or bad may be. Okay. The research setting needs to be defined clearly. You should not take too much of size. Maybe a paragraph will do, but then you need to understand and tell the people to create an interest in them, right? It should be a comprehensive. The research design should be, the research design is the most important. What is the research design? I hope all of you are aware of it, right? The research design is nothing but a blueprint or a roadmap of the research process, right? So if I am doing a research, I may be conducting a descriptive or a conclusive research, right? Or a non-conclusive or exploratory research, right? And the instrument that I have used, maybe it's I have used observational method because I am doing a case research, or I have developed a questionnaire, or I am working in a lab and I am measuring the different interpretations or the outputs that is coming in the machine, right? Whatever it is. So whatever is the instrument, that instrument has to be neatly explained. What is your sample or your test units, right? So who is your sample? How did you find your sample? What is your population? So this is very, very important. The researcher needs to be very clear in explaining this and should not be, a miser in spending less time and less, paper on that. So write it very clearly. What is your sample? How did you find this sample? What kind of sampling method did you use? Was it a random sampling method? Was it a non-random sampling method? If it was a random sampling method, was it a stratified method? What is the systematic method? What is the simple random method? What did you do? Or was it, if it's a non-random, then what was the method and why only this method? Neatly, you need to explain. And once you have explained this, you also need to explain what is your sample size. Suppose your sample size you have taken is, let's say, 1,000. And somebody has taken a sample size of, let's say, 100. Is there a difference? Yes, there is a difference. But is it necessary to say that the sample of 1,000 is better than the sample of 100? No, not necessarily, right? Why? Because the sample only comes from a population. Now, suppose I am doing a study on cosmetics, a sample of 1,000, and on the other side, I am doing a study on, let's say, brain theory or brain researches, right? Cognitive theories. Now, a sample of 100 may be even a big sample. Or if suppose I'm doing a study on ambidextrous people, who are using both hands simultaneously, maybe a left-handed bowler and a right-handed batsman, or a left-handed writer and right hand he uses for eating. So now, if I do a research on these people, the population is so small that getting a sample of even 100 is a challenge. My professor had done a research in IIT Kharagpur, and his sample size was only 16, 1/6, right? And it was published in one of the FT50 journals in the world, which is a hugely popular journal, right? So what's the sample? So very clear. Now the question is, after the sample, you need to also explain the scale used in the study. Was it an open-ended question? Was it a closed-ended question? What kind of a scale did you use? Did you use some kind of a itemized scale, or a continuous scale? What kind of a scale did you use? Was it a dichotomous or non-dichotomous scale? So what kind of a scale did you use? How did you develop this scale? Did you develop on your own this scale, or you have collected this scale from some earlier research papers? If you have collected from earlier research papers, you need to very clearly describe which item was taken from which research paper. You have to very clearly mention it, right? People don't do these things, that's why they fall into trouble. Trouble in the sense of not only plagiarism, the paper doesn't get published. Then you talk about the data collection. So how much of data collection you did, and what was the, let's say, the finally, how many questionnaires you distributed, and what was the response finally you collected, and how much of them was wasted because of certain reason. Maybe you got wasted because of there was missing data, or there was highly skewed data. So this data was not up to the mark. There was a very little standard deviation among the data. So in such conditions, the data collection needs to be explained. And remember, once you have explained the scale, the use of statistics comes into place, because the scale and the statistics used in the study are highly correlated. So the use of statistics should be logical and not based on others' work only. Many a times we don't take the pain of thinking. Obviously, thinking is a tough job, right? Otherwise, people in the higher cadre or higher responsibility would not have been paid so high. A laborer would have been paid more. I'm not denying or that trying to belittle any job. Everything is good and God made. So I'm not saying good or bad. But why it is more difficult, because decision taking is thinking is more difficult, obviously, because out of thinking comes the next generation of outputs and products and services, right? So what statistics will you use? Now, this is something where students come to me, many researchers from outside the universities come to me, from your Bihar also. People have meet me, but I don't find time. Obviously, very little time I get, but whenever I get time, I explain them. So, sir, what is the statistics I would use in this case? How should the statistics be developed, be understood? So it entirely depends on what kind of a sample population tool and scales you have used. What's the objective of the study? Now, suppose if you do not understand the difference between, let's say, you say every regression is the same, and you don't understand a linear and a non-linear regression, then I'm sorry, then you can be in a trouble, right? If your data is skewed and you don't understand what to do with the data which is not normal, right? Then you will be into trouble, right? So these are the things which are very, very important for any researcher to understand it, and then explain it to the reader, right? So use of statistics should be logical and not just based on what I have read in some other paper. So he had used it, so I am using it. No, that should not be the criteria. After I have done with the methods, I have collected the data, I assume that you have also filtered the data. Now, this is something I say purification of data. So data purification is a very important thing, and the researchers needs to understand the data, that why data purification is important. As I said, there could be problems of missing data. There could be problems of outliers in the data. Now, if they are present in your data, and all of you are from mathematics background largely, so you will understand that the presence of outliers can completely disturb the mean, right? So completely disturb the mean and the standard deviation of the study. So that should be carefully handled, and after that only you should go for a analysis, right? And once you do this analysis, then automatic output of the analysis is the results. So results and analysis, I am trying to club it here in the same, right? When you talk about results, the first thing that you should mention is the respondent or the sample profile. Now that sometimes researchers I have seen doing it in a paragraph form, sometimes they put it in a tabular form, right? Whatever you feel like also you can do, whichever you like. So tabular form, I do mostly tabular form because I love it, because that saves my time. It's just numbers and you don't have to explain because they're self-explanatory. In the results, one important thing is the reliability and the validity check of the instrument that you have used. Now, I hope you all understand the meaning of reliability and validity. That means the research instrument that I am using should be valid, should go for some kind of validity check, for example, face validity, content validity, the construct validity, and then it also needs to be checked for reliability. Generally, you go for a Cronbach's alpha in a case of a normal exploratory research, or you can just do a construct reliability. You can go through a to you can find the reliability of the entire construct, right? So even you can check the validity. You can go for different kinds of validity. For example, convergent, discriminate, right, which comes as a part of the construct validity, and the content, as I said. So the researcher needs to be very, very clear that when you are writing a research paper, you need to explain the validity and reliability of the instrument that you are using. If you don't do that, automatically the reviewer will ask, and it will only be a waste of your time. He will say, how do you ensure, how did you know that this is a reliable instrument? It's a valid instrument. You have not mentioned it here. So kindly explain that to us. He will say that. The main findings of the research should come here, of the in the result section. So, but not all findings. Now, why I'm saying not all findings? Where does it get connected to? It gets connected to the hypothesis that you had built during the introduction and literature, right? So, all the analysis that you do, they might not be necessary to be told to the reader, but only those findings which are important and they are connected to our research question or our hypothesis of interest, they need to be explained, right? And findings from the experiment described in the method section. So the methods, what you have described, it has to match with it, right? So which I described in the hypothesis or in the method section. So that has to, there has to be a compatibility between the two. Just don't write anything and anything, because I have done a kind of a analysis, a mathematical analysis. I should be telling it to the reader. No, not necessarily. Tell the reader only that much what he needs for this to understand this paper, nothing more than that. So results of the statistical analysis. Now this is saying a picture is worth 1,000 words by, so there was in Sue 1968, he had said a picture, one picture is worth 1,000 words. So if you are writing a research paper, ensure that your results are well, described in format of a table or something, right? So you can see, if I would have written this, what is happening to the temperature and the relationship between day and temperature, I could have written that it grows and then it falls, and suddenly there is a high spike, and then it falls drastically like the Indian economy, and then it again starts growing. As the government is saying that we will have a V-shaped recovery, in the next few months, which I doubt. It could be not a V but a K. So whatever it is, I don't get into the arguments right now. So the point is, this kind of a recovery is what I'm trying to explain here is that this graph tells you everything without writing anything, right? So figures and tables are the most efficient way. So use your intelligence. My request is everyone, including myself, that we should all use our intelligence to use the tables in a very succinct manner, right? In a very elaborative, clear manner, so that the reader can, if doesn't understand English also, he can still understand it from our tables. Duplication of results should be avoided. So you have written at one place, again you are writing the same result in a different way, just to maybe increase the length. No, don't do that. If the reviewer or the is checking it and he looks at it, he makes a very poor impression and he says, this author has deliberately done it. So let's not irritate the reader or the reviewer. Now comes to the section, which is the one of the less talked about, but I would say the most important part of the research paper. Now you have written the introduction, which I said important. Yes, they are all important, no doubt about it. Then you came to the methodology. Again, I said it's very important, and really it's important. But generally, this is a section which people don't talk and they don't say it is important, but then it is more important than anything else. And with my little experience, I can tell you that I have seen that discussion section, when it gets poor, most of the time the reviewers reject the paper. They say the discussion section is not well written. Either you go through a review process entire and recheck it and send it to us, or they reject the article. A article of not very high standards also gets published. This is a trick, you should know. This is a trick actually. If your discussion section is well written, and your discussion section can only be well written when you have done the methodology very clearly and nicely, right? So what is this discussion section? Let's come to that. Here you get to chance to sell your data, your idea, right? So here is something the researcher actually tells the world of science, the scientific community, what is his contribution or her contribution. So many manuscripts are rejected because the discussion is weak and people don't think about it. They think, my methodology is not good, I couldn't write, my English is poor, that's why. No, 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 no. That's not the reason. Your discussion section was not written well. Had you spent little more time, another 5 days, to make your discussion section little stronger, your paper at least would have gone through a review, and maybe not a rejection, but a major review would have come, but at least it would have been a major review, not a rejection, right? So when you go for a discussion, you keep these things in mind. Check for the following. How do your results relate? One second, I just drink some water. So check for the following. How do your results relate to the original question, objectives outlined in the introduction? Here I mean the original question means the research questions and the hypothesis. So how do your results relate to that? This is what you have to mention in the discussion section. Do you provide interpretation for each of your results presented? Right? Are your results consistent with what other investigators have reported? Write all these things. So let's say I found during my analysis, my result that people actually feel good when the price of a good goes up, a specific good, let's say luxury good, because they feel it improves my status in the society. Now you say that XY David 2010 had also given such a statement in Turkey, or let's say in some other country. His research was done, and his finding also was similar to what I have found it in this paper. When you say this, the discussion becomes very rich and powerful. If you have any limitations in your study, mention it, right? But don't make it like a suicidal limitation. This is something I am talking at one-to-one. Please don't. I shouldn't be saying this. You shouldn't be quoting it anyway. But then write your limitations in a manner that they do not make your paper look weak, but they only give an opportunity for the next researcher who works looking at your article to improve upon it, and it is a future scope of research. Instead of saying a limitation, rather I would reword it and put it as a future scope of research. Does the discussion logically lead to your conclusion? You need to talk about it in this discussion section. Do not make statements that your results cannot support. If you have written anything that your results are not supporting, or there is no evidence through your results, please do not write. Please do not write. Right? Do not suddenly introduce new terms or ideas in this discussion section. Discussion is towards the end. So whatever you've written at the top must be followed. It's like a river flowing, right? So at the end, New terms cannot come. So don't do that. So I hope you have understood the importance of discussion. So this section is one of the most important sections, and it is very important. It is the differentiating factor. Please understand between let's say two papers who have written well. Everything is good. English is good. Introduction section is good. Methodology is good. But what is the difference between the two papers getting accepted or rejected is the discussion section, because this is where the researcher says, well, this is my contribution, and my contribution is exactly, is something novel and new, right? So this is something very important. Now comes to the conclusion. As I had said earlier also, do not summarize the paper. In the conclusion stage, your job is not to summarize the paper. That is the abstract's job. The abstract is doing the same job at the top. So why do you want to do that at the conclusion? But generally, I have seen students coming to me and with their papers, and I see that your conclusion is of no use. I say, it's not a conclusion. What did you conclude in this study? Present what you have shown and what it means for the field, right? Here, you in the abstract, you did not say what it means for this field of marketing or finance or HR. You did not say that. Here, this is the place where you say this in the conclusion, right? Suggest future experiments or future new techniques of conducting the study, which I was talking to you in the limitations also, right? And how that should be proceeded, how the researcher should proceed with such kind of an exam, study. Avoid any bold judgments about the impact of the study. My study would do this. Please avoid such kind of statements, right? So this, if you have done up to this, and then comes the final part, which is the references. Now, somebody would think, how is references important? References are also equally very important. Many a times, reviewers don't like a paper just because the referencing has not been done correctly. Now, let me explain. References are also called as the bibliography, largely. So, cite the main research publication on which your work is based. So, the base research that should be always cited very clearly. The referencing style. Now, some journals might be using the MLA style, somebody might be using the APA style, somebody might be using the Harvard, the Chicago, the Vancouver style. So, which reference style is the journal using? Please go to the guide for authors and check it. Don't be lazy in reading. And after that, you have made a paper out of maybe 8-9 months, and then it goes to the reviewer, and the reviewer makes a very dirty comment and rejects it. So instead of doing that, take little more pain, because nowadays tools are available to convert it very easily. So don't worry about it. The spelling of the author's names, year of publication should be clearly mentioned, and this is very important. Generally, I also, when I review papers, I don't like when people only give very old references. Fine, base papers are okay. So the base paper would not change. If it's Ronald Coase 1937, the nature of the firm, it's fine, fantastic for me. But then, if you say there has been no new research on this, and it has been, and your last update was in 2012 or 14, then I would say sorry, because you are not reading. Whatever you had read, that's the last 6 years you have not read anything, or last 5 years you have not read anything. So that's a very dangerous thing. Okay. So up to this portion, whatever I have said is all about how to make the paper, right? How you make the introduction, the methodology, the discussion. I hope everything is clear. I'll keep last 10 minutes for discussion where I can discuss if you have questions. Now coming to the decision, how do the reviewers, the editors take the decision to accept or reject a paper, right? So I hope till now you have been clear with what I have said. Yes, can I get some yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Okay, now this is very interesting. Accepted, the first part. This is something we would love, right? So I can make it look little green, right? So this is the lucky symbol, green for us. So I accepted. Very rare, but it happens. On the first go, a paper getting accepted is a very rare thing, right? And if it is, congratulations, go with a cake to your department, your whichever accounts department, finance department you are in, and celebrate it, right? And wait for the page proofs, right? But this doesn't happen. So this is the portion which now we will see, which is little reddish in color. Probably 40 to 90% of the papers get rejected. But the question here is, do not despair. It happens to everybody. Now, you must have heard from several people, including today me. So that's not a great thing to do. But then still I will repeat it. The question here is, try to understand why. Why did your paper get rejected? Instead of getting despaired and discouraged, understand why your paper got rejected. Right? Consider the reviewer's advice. The reviewer must have given. If it's a desk reject, then please understand that either the paper did not fall into the aim of the journal, or you have written really a bad paper. Your English was horrible that the reviewer did not even check it. Okay. Otherwise, if there is some revision, please go through those revisions. You know what I will suggest here is, I'll tell you at the end, right? Consider the reviewer's advice. Be self-critical. Don't love your ideas so much. Always criticize your ideas, what better you could have done. If you do that, I can challenge you, in a few months time, you will be a much better writer than many people out in your team, right? If you resubmit to the same journal, respond to the reviewers and editors' comments and regard it as a new manuscript. You behave it as a new manuscript, right? If you submit it to another journal, take advantage of the reviewers' comments that you had studied in the last journal, right? Which you had sent and you got rejected. Use those comments, improve the paper, right? And read the guide for authors for the new journal again and again, because you are again going to a new journal. So the style of the paper could be different. The referencing could be different. So check it. And the best papers has been seen that they have never got accepted, generally have never got accepted in the first go. Even Philip Kotler's papers get rejected twice, thrice, right, in different places. Naresh Malhotra's papers get rejected. Even sometimes this is not to be opened up, but then we do check several papers of several good researchers, although it's blind review, but somehow you can make it, right, because of some other reason, right? I'm not getting into that. So so don't get disheartened, but understand. So what are the reasons for the rejection of the paper? These are some 8 key points that I've given. It fails the technical screening, not complete. Either it's not a complete paper, you have missed some of the points which in the guide for authors it was mentioned, but you have not done that, right? Because some Elsevier journals and some journals, Emeralds, they ask for highlights. So, and other journals, they don't ask for highlights. So if you have used the same methodology what you are using for Elsevier and trying to send it to Emerald, they will understand it, they'll reject it there and then, right? Poor English is a major problem. Take help of Grammarly or some English correcting, software if possible. It does not fall within the aims and scope. See, looks very simple, but we do not read. When we write a paper, first we write a paper, then we just open the journal and try submitting it. Please read the aim and scope of the journal, whether your journal, the paper falls into it or not, right? The procedure of analysis of the data seem to be defective. The author, the reviewer is not very happy. He says this analysis is not up to the mark, right? Or this method is not up to the mark. Conclusions cannot be justified on basis of the rest of the paper. It is simply a small extension. There is nothing new contribution to the world of knowledge, right? It is not readable or incomprehensible, not understanding. We cannot understand it, and it is finally very boring paper. The way it is written, it is very boring. Some teachers are very boring. You also will agree, and some teachers make the same subject very interesting. Similarly, writing also can be very interesting and boring. If you make, you are not speaking here, but then point is you can break the paragraphs, break the sentences, use simple languages, to make it little more interesting. Okay. Arrangement of the, table with tables instead of writing too much. Those things help you to generate the interest of the reader. Now, what are the common issues? The common issues which after we have written the paper is selecting the right journal. Yes, plagiarism. Now, very, very big problem. Many a times we as Indians don't even understand the plagiarism because we were not born in a climate where, first of all, English is not our mother language, and somehow we have a pressure of publishing. So 90% of the time I've seen people trying to plagiarize others' work, right? And I would say it's a dangerous pit where if you fall, you can never rise then, because it's a criminal offense, right? The question is, how do you handle the plagiarism? How do you handle the reviewers? I have brought everything for you. I'll explain to you. How do you improve your citation? How do you should acknowledge others, right? So first, let's come to this part: selecting the right journal. So getting a research paper published can be a challenge. We all agree to that. Now we have understood it. Risks that come from submitting a paper that's not the right fit. Suppose you have not read it, the guide to the authors, and you have just submitted. Your months get wasted. If your promotion is due, you will not get it just because you have sent it to a wrong journal who has told you after 6 months that your paper doesn't fit us, and it can get rejected. Right? How to know if a journal is a good journal? What are the bases? Check the impact factor of the journal. Now, what is the impact factor? The number of citations in the maybe 2 years divided by the number of articles published by the journal, right? So by dividing it, we get the impact factor. So a journal with a decent impact factor, I'm saying a decent impact factor. It's not everything, but it's a decent impact factor, right? How many issues are coming up in a year? Now, this is very controversial. Generally, I have seen some journals of Elsevier, for example, they come up with 12 issues per year, but their impact factor is also high. Now, that's all because of the marketing. Fantastic. I have no issues. If somebody acknowledges that this is a good journal, I would also send my paper. So check how many issues are coming. If it is like 15 issues, 20 issues sometimes, then sorry, I don't want to give to such a journal. Number of publications is an issue, right? In an issue. So how many articles are they taking? Maybe somebody is taking 6 issues in a year and with 20 publications, so 120 per year. Somebody is taking 12 issues per year with, let's say, 20, so 240. Now you have to make a difference in understand the difference, right? Indexing, is it like SSCI index for us, social science citation index or science citation index, psycho information or Scopus, what it is basically? Is it indexed or not indexed? When you have written taken so much of hard pain and difficulty in writing a paper, why should you even compromise it with giving to a poor journal? Okay, I forgot. I said somewhere here when I was talking, I will tell you something here. I remembered. So I wanted to tell you to get a reviewer's comment, right? If you want to get good comments, the best thing that you should do is that send your article, if it is worth you feel, to the best possible journal in your area. Don't send it to the worst journal. Now, this is something maybe not ethically very correct, but do it because if you have taken the hard work of writing a paper and you feel it has got some standard, and your standard you feel if it is for not A star, but let's say for A, then among the A journals you send it. What happens is these people are very honest and they will give you a very important review, right? Feedback. And if they reject you also, at least if you correct the reviewer's comments and send it to a new journal, the chances of getting published becomes very high. So in the first go, don't target a C or a D grade journal, right? Don't ever do that. It is like undermining your own hard work. Don't do that. Search for good journals, right? And keep regular check on these journals. Generally, good journals, generally I'm speaking, is unpaid journals. But in finance, I have seen some of the best journals are also paid. So it differs from area to area. So I do not want to talk much about it. But to my knowledge, generally the good journals don't charge you. Okay. So beware of fake and predatory journals and publishers. As I said, you must be getting mails. We have a list of journals of 20 journals and with impact factor 13, 12. Bogus. Forget them. Remember, it's important to make sure that you are publishing in a suitable journal, not publishing a taxation paper as yours in your case in some information technology journal. So people want to get it published at any cost. Don't do that, right? It's a suitable journal. At least it should be fitting to your area. Reference list is a great place to start working. If you don't know what are the good journals, so I think I have brought example. Yeah. So look at these are the references. Just look at the journals. So these are the journals. Suppose you are writing a paper on educational research. So Journal of Education Behavioral Statistics. This is a book. Then I go for okay. Australian Educational Research. Canadian Journal of Higher Education, higher education research and development. So I have got a list of so many journals, right? So and maybe the recent ones or something, right? So why not get an idea from this reference list? So that's a very reverse engineering. It's a good process. Okay. Even you can select journals from journal finders like Elsevier has got it. If you type any journal and you see SU at the left hand corner down, you will see there's a journal finder. I have also brought I think link, yes. So it looks something like this to you, right? Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you can have a journal finder. You can give your title, your paper abstract. It will tell you some field of research and all. Then it will tell you which are the journals you should be targeting, right? Now, how do you handle plagiarism is an important issue. Plagiarism is something which was told to us when I was in Kharagpur. So our dean said, you sometimes might be innocent, but you can still fall in plagiarism, right? And then it's not a innocence anymore; it's a crime, right? So you need to be careful. Even self-plagiarism is a crime, right? And generally, my students also do it sometimes. They send a article to 2, 3 different publications. That's also unethical, right? So what is plagiarism? To steal and pass off somebody's idea as one's own, right? So if you want to do, so you should not be, using somebody's work without crediting the source. What is wrong in just telling that the source was this person? We took the source was this article or this author. It is a literary theft. It is literary theft, right? Present as new and original an idea that has been derived from already an existing source, right? Copying or even taking recently I will not tell, but one student I saw, he got into a controversy. Now what he had done was he took a conceptual model and directly used it. The reviewer charged him, the editor charged him with plagiarism, saying that this model is the same. There is only one variable missing out. Otherwise, it's the same to another researcher's model. So how is it different? You have copied and you have not even cited him, right? So that is be very careful, right? That's also a mistake. So avoid plagiarism. Always cite your sources and paraphrase your sentences. If you are writing in a third person, tense, future tense or something, so paraphrase it. Or if you are writing the exact words, put it in a quotation mark. Then it is not a plagiarism anymore, right? And if there are copied figures, then you have to take copyright permission. Some of them are difficult things, time consuming things, but then it is important. You can't avoid it. Now I'll come to the last, maybe this is one of the last points. After you have got your, you have handled plagiarism, you have paraphrased it, you have done it correctly, and wherever the quotes. But see, if you still, I have seen students making this mistake. They take one paper and they look at the flow of this paper which is published and try to make another paper out of it. If you do that, it is okay. But if you get caught, somebody checks it, it's dangerous. It is unethical. And it's not required. You can just look at the paper once, close it, and then write in your own way. What happens is you just want an idea, right? So get an idea. And after that, use your own logic, right? How do you handle the review? Do not engage in attacks even with hostility. Sometimes the reviews could be very, very derogatory. Some reviewers are not very nice also. So they write, this author does not know anything. He's writing something of his own. He has no sense. Do not attack them. Do not write a mail to them. Hey, what nonsense is this? Who is you to write me like this? Don't do that. Don't get into a war, right? It's not required. Respond thoughtfully and courteously to the criticism. Even Einstein once had done this, and later on he realized that when he published this same paper in another journal, he realized that actually the reviewer had pointed out a genuine mistake of his. So he acknowledged that he was a great man, so he acknowledged, he admitted it. But many times we don't admit, right? If you disagree, explain exactly why in a polite and detailed manner. Papers can be rejected because authors do not respond properly to criticism. Many a times it also happens we do not handle the review process properly, and because of that, the papers get rejected. Okay. So the basic points that you need to be careful before submitting your paper. So this is my second last slide. Briefly investigate about the editors and their credentials. Who are the editors of this journal where I'm sending? What is their profile? Pay close attention to the spelling mistake, grammar, right? Stick to the journal's format of writing a paper. There is always a format, so you have to follow it. Add tables, references in the right manner. Don't use a APA reference when they want a Harvard reference. Don't do that. This is a grave mistake. Stick to the instruction for the authors, right? So if you do these things and then you submit, your paper becomes a very rich, very nice paper, right? And finally, what to do? Beware of fake and predatory journals, right? Competition for publication is intense, but a good research work never goes unnoticed. So don't worry about it. If your paper gets rejected once, don't lose hope. Work, send it to a good journal, get the good reviews, and rework and send it. Stick to good ABC kind of index journals. Okay. And finally, this is the last line and the last word is please focus on the quality of publications rather than quantity. I will not name, but I had a friend 10 years, 8 years back. I'm telling where I was working. This friend of mine at that point of time had almost 150 papers. He was working with a private institution and where I was working. And today he has got more than maybe 300 publications. But let me tell you, they are of no worth. I have in total 38 plus 1 now, 39 papers. But I can proudly say if I count, my impact factor is more than 45 to 50, right? Much more than 50, I think. It's now, I think, 65 or 70. Because some of my papers are in the range of 5.8, 5.4.5, right? So it's not important, and I'm not trying to brag myself. It's important that you do some quantity, good work, and the quality of publication is important, not the number of papers that is important, right? So don't get fall into the trap of quantity, 300, 200. Yes, in sometimes in for assistant professor, associate professor, you require this number. So you meet the criteria. I'm not denying that, but then don't always continue doing that. Rather, at least have two good papers in your life so that when you retire, you feel good about it, right? Well, I'll stop it here. I'll stop sharing here, and I'm open to questions now. I'll love to discuss if you have some questions, right? Okay, there is a question from Shailendra to everyone. Please say about predatory journals. Predatory journals, Shailendra, are those journals which we mean to say are those journals which are generally not well ranked. They do not have good impact factor, and they are not, maybe if you say C impact factors are 10, 12, 13, they might write something in blue and red and all. So that's not the one I'm talking about. You look at the good publishing houses like Springer, Emerald, Taylor and Francis, Elsevier. So, and even none of them, sometimes it is none of them also, because for example, you have Covent and you have, for example, Academy of Management. So all these things are, good publishing houses. And if you select a journal out of them, then you don't fall prey to those predatory journals, which I say, who are just making money. They would say, you pay us 2,500, this is the publication charge, and we will publish your paper. No, don't do that. That's a predatory journal, I mean. Okay. Yeah. Anybody has question? I'm open. Professor Dhiren, I'm open to question.
So there is a question from Achima Bishnoi that how to make best balance between my ideas and information from outside sources.
What is it? Can you please, Rahul, explain again?
How to make best balance between my ideas and information from outside sources.
Okay. The outside sources, to what I understand, if I understand you correctly, you're talking about outside, information in the sense of the research, the literature review, because data analysis is yours, right? And the results and discussion is yours. That is not to be taken from anywhere on anybody, right? So only thing that you can take from outside is the literature review, how to write an abstract or something. That idea you can take, right? So when you do that, my request is use as much as possible, in the literature, the different authors, the different writers, whoever you want to, you can quote them, you can even make a table. What I usually do is I make a table, and I try to give it in the form so that every question or every instrument, the item that I've taken, from what is the source and from where I've taken. So what happens by that, the reviewer understands. I'll come to, please, one by one, let me finish. The reviewer understands that the researcher has read a lot of articles, and after that he understands that he is informed and he is up to date. That helps in the publication of the paper. That's what. Otherwise, everything else is yours. The methodology, the result, and the discussion is yours, right? Completely. Yeah. Next question is, please, Rahul, go ahead. I hope I am clear.
There is another question from Ashima. Why it is wrong to use in this course, the author says.
Why is it wrong to say?
Why it is wrong to use in this quote, the author says.
No. It's, I think I see, whenever you write something, if you are writing in a quote, you understand the double quote, right? So you can verbatim give what the statement of the author was. So you don't fall into plagiarism. That's the meaning. But suppose you are not giving it in quote, you are writing it in your language, then I am saying you paraphrase it. You write it in a way as you understand, and then from your mind, what you understood, you write it that, right? If you don't do that, and if you write the exact words without a quote, then it is a case of plagiarism. I meant that. Okay. Thank you. Next,
Okay,
Rahul, if I
next
have.
question is from Diksha. She is
Okay.
really interested in your research paper. So how do she get?
My research papers are all available on Google Scholar, right? You can easily download it. So you can put my name in Google Scholar, and I think it will be available to you. They are open and they can be downloaded. That's the only
Okay.
way I can. Yeah.
Next question is from Chanchala.
Yeah.
How to use numerical data from published sources to avoid plagiarism? Like if she uses the same data, do it come under plagiarism?
Whose question was that?
Chanchala.
Chanchala. Okay, Chanchala, thank you for asking this question. First of all, the beauty is that numerical data does not it's not possible to catch numerical data and in plagiarism or non-plagiarism. What plagiarism, for example, the software catch is the literature, the writing. So the numerical data is generally not caught. But what happens is, many a times I have observed that if X has literally taken a table of another author's paper, and to his or her bad luck, the author has somehow come across this paper because it is in the same area, right? In that case, the researcher becomes false trap, right? The researcher false trap, and the author then questions the editor, and the editor, how did this researcher exactly get the same table like mine? Because his context is different, his study is different in a different place. How did he or she get the same kind of a data? It is impossible. Then what the editor does is it asks you for the data set, and then you are into trouble. So instead of getting into these things, what I would suggest is you only look for the knowledge, the idea. But after that, what you should do is you should be writing it in your own language, in your own way, right? Only that I will tell you, so that there is at least some and it will happen if you honestly do a work. There will be some substantial difference because somebody has done in Canada and your context is in India. It cannot be the same. So the data will vary, right? So that's what I would like.
Okay, next question is from Mohammed Faisal. Is there any difference between aim and objective in writing a thesis?
The objectives could be many. Aim is only generally one. Simply, if I want to tell you, it's who was that question? Whose question was that?
Mohammed
Mohammed
Faisal.
Faisal. Faisal, for you and others also. Your aim is generally one. You have the aim of the study is maybe you say this is the aim of the study is to understand the firm performance behavior or the effect of human resource on the firm performance, the financial markets on the firm performance. That's my aim of the study. My objectives would be many, out of which I would like to say how derivative commodity trading helps, how savings helps, how debt instruments help suppose in a financial study help. So there could be several objectives I can have, and I can test these objectives. Did I make sense? You have only one aim. The aim of the study is only one, but you have several objectives. Thank you.
Okay, and next question from Swapan Pradhan, that can I have your inputs on key takeaways? Should it be highlighted under introduction or under literature review? Any input?
What again, Rahul?
Can I have your input on key takeaways? Should
Uh-huh.
it be highlighted under introduction or under literature review?
No, it doesn't come in the literature review at all. It has to come in the highlights, right? Your key takeaways of the study. So the key takeaway of the studies will never come in the literature because you have not done your study yet. So your data has to be collected, analyzed, because literature comes at the top after introduction and literature. It comes down, right? So the methodology, once you have done, the key takeaways of the study comes in your discussion section. That is what I had said. You sell your study, your paper gets accepted or rejected on basis of how good you write your discussion part, because that is your contribution and nobody else. Thank
I
you.
hope all the queries are resolved.
Thank you so much. I also have.
Sir, I would
Thank
like
you so much, sir,
to
for
ask
such.
a question, sir.
Who is there?
Yes, sir. Keep.
Sir, this is Dr. Dharen Kumar
Dharen.
Pandey.
Hi, Darren. Hi, Darren. Please go.
I am sending the reviewers comment to chat.
Okay. Now you have sent it to chat. Okay. Okay.
So sending it. Again, I am sending. This is the reviewers comment regarding my paper.
Let me read it.
I just want to know whether.
Well, let me just give a second to me. I can first congratulate you that you have a high chance of getting these papers published. Fine. I at this moment, by looking just at Professor Dharan, I can say congratulations to you. Your paper will get published. But you need to not be very happy at the moment, and just keep yourself, a little more focused. And reviewers' comments, you answer them very nicely, and just don't let it make you little loose. So as focused you were, keep doing that, because obviously this will get published. But just the other channels of uncertainty and the financial market, what we have said. So you need to talk about it slightly in the sections. Maybe you bring it in the literature review a bit, right? And maybe if I understand it, your citation, obviously when you write in the literature only, you can cite it at the end, right? So
Yes.
and then if you can create an objective or something, if it is possible for you to do that, do that. Otherwise, if it's not possible, don't force yourself, don't worry at all, leave it like that. But add at least in the literature and the citation. That much I can tell.
Actually, sir, my paper is on event study methodology, and the papers the reviewer have asked to cite, the methodology is quite different.
Okay.
If I go, if I use those methodologies, my paper will be different. It will change. It will be modified. Major part of the paper will be modified.
Then that
So I just want to cite those papers.
What you do is you tell this problem. I don't know. I have to discuss at one-to-one with you. What is the method you have used, and what is the method the reviewers expect you to do, right? And why they have expected this method, ask this method. They must be having their own logic. Maybe it's the most popular method at this current time, or according to your study, this is they feel there's the most apt methodology. So whatever it is, I don't know at the moment, so no comments on that. But I can only suggest is, if it is possible for you, then do it. If it is not possible, you just politely write to them, okay, this is at this position, this is the best thing I can do. Add in the literature and citation, saying a thank you to them, and do that. If it still doesn't get accepted, you need not worry. You can go to some other judge. That I can say. Otherwise, the entire paper can be changed then, and it's a tough job. you cannot do it.
Actually, this is the second revision, sir. Previously, they have also revision regarding the methodology.
What kind of a
I
journal
have
is
done.
it?
Thereafter, they have. It
Is it
is
a ABD?
a Group A journal of ABTC Group A journal, sir.
So it's a good journal. I think you should take the pain of working little more. I would
Yes,
suggest
sir.
you should take the pain. Yes. Because you don't write every day in a A-graded journal in finance in ABTC. So if you have already reached to this stage where I can see it's going to get published, if as a reviewer, if I understand, it will be published. So I think you should. I would suggest, or my advice would be, please spend a little more time on that. Well, so if I have no more questions, we'll wind up, or if there are, I'll take one or two.
So now we will have the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a fruitful and informative session. You make us aware elementary steps for writing a research paper, like focus on good quality research paper on literature review. There should be a short and attractive title, and we should be very cautious for grammatical errors while writing research paper. Research design should be very comprehensive. We've also explained about discussion, conclusion, acknowledgement, and references. Your presence in this session has definitely enhanced the knowledge of parts. Now we have come to the end of the session. I request Professor S.S. Gupta, who is ex-head and dean, Faculty of Commerce, Magad University, Bodh Gaya, to kindly propose vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
I think it's new voice.
मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ अभी आ रही है.
Yes, sir, audible.
ओके. मैं सबसे पहले ये डॉक्टर धैर्येंद्र पांडे को धन्यवाद दूंगा, क्योंकि उन्होंने विद्या रूपी अथाह सागर से विभिन्न मोतियों को चुन करके आपके सामने, हम लोगों के सामने प्रस्तुत किया है, जिससे कि उनके अमूल्य विचारों को और उनके ज्ञान के भंडार से हम लोग लाभान्वित हो रहे हैं। अभी प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर जोगेंद्र कुमार नायक साहब, जो कि आईआईटी रुड़की में एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर हैं, मैं इनके द्वारा अभी जो वक्तव्य दिया गया, अभी जो हमारे विद्यार्थियों को और इस ग्रुप में जुड़े हुए विभिन्न शोधार्थियों को जो लाभ पहुंचाए हैं, जो उन्हें ज्ञान अर्जन दिए हैं, उनके लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद उन्हें प्रेषित करना चाहता हूं।
आपको भी धन्यवाद सर। आपको
मैं इनका बहुत आभारी हूं, क्योंकि इन्होंने मगध विश्वविद्यालय के वाणिज्य विभाग के लिए अपना बहुमूल्य समय प्रदान किया। मैं इस अवसर पर प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर जीएन शर्मा, हेड एंड डीन, फैकल्टी ऑफ कॉमर्स, मगध विश्वविद्यालय बोध गया, डॉक्टर विनीता कुमारी, धैर्येंद्र पांडे और इन सभी का आभार प्रकट करता हूं कि इन्होंने हमारे विभाग के नाम रोशन करने में और आध्यात्मिक गतिविधियों को निरंतर आगे बढ़ाने में बहुमूल्य योगदान दिया है। मैं इस कार्यक्रम से जुड़े हुए हमारे विद्यार्थी, कलीग्स और विभिन्न विश्वविद्यालयों एवं शोध संस्थाओं से जुड़े हुए व्यक्तियों का भी आभारी हूं, जिन लोगों ने अपार सहयोग प्रदान कर और अपना बहुमूल्य समय प्रदान करके इस कार्यक्रम में शामिल हुए और लाभान्वित हुए। मैं डॉक्टर जोगेंद्र कुमार नायक जी का पुनः बहुत बहुत आभार प्रकट करता हूं, उन्हें धन्यवाद प्रेषित करता हूं। और ये कोरोना का एक है, इसलिए वर्चुअल दिख रहे हैं, आपस में मिल रहे हैं। ये बहुत अच्छा रहा फिजिकल एक साथ बैठ करके आपकी बात सुनते, मिलते जुलते, तो इससे ज्यादा अच्छा अनुभव होता। खैर कोई बात नहीं, मुझे विश्वास है कि पांडे साहब, डॉक्टर पांडे की कर्मठता इतनी है कि निकट भविष्य में वो ऐसी योजनाएं सामान्य स्थिति होने पर ऐसे कार्यक्रम को और संचालित करेंगे, जिससे कि हम लोग व्यक्तिगत रूप से, भौतिक रूप से मिल सकेंगे। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। पुनः आप सभी लोगों का धन्यवाद, आभार, शुक्रिया। थैंक यू।
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, Rahul, please.
Yes, sir. Once again, I thank you for sparing your valuable time.
I'll
with
just
us by
take a second,
imparting
Rahul.
your skill.
I'll just take a second. So first, I'd like to thank Professor Gupta for giving such a lovely vote of thanks, and all my heart to Professor Pandey. My love to Professor Pandey. Thank you, Professor Pandey.
Thank you, sir.
Whenever you are in any kind of a trouble or any kind of research, at least academic help you want, I am there for you. I can tell you, and I am there open for others also. But obviously, I can extend my arm to you. So thank you so much for inviting me. Thanks, Rahul, for being a sport. Lovely way of hosting, and all the lovely participants for giving me a patient here. So thank you, one and all, everyone. So nice of you. So thanks. Rahul will carry on.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you everyone for your active participation and cooperation. And please do join for next session. And the meeting link will remain the same. Thank you.
So bye bye.